Morning. We moved to the second part of this 2-week sermon series of Let's Talk. And last week we looked at the Good Samaritan. Today we look at the Prodigal Son. And again, we're looking at Luke, the 15th chapter. Before I get to the scripture, just wanted to point out that there are 3 parables that are linked together here in the Gospel of Luke that dealing with finding something that's lost. The first one is finding the lost sheep. The second one is the coin that is lost. And then the third one is the lost son that is found. So Luke 15, starting with the 11th verse. Jesus said, "A certain man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the inheritance.' Then the father divided his estate between them. Soon afterward, the younger son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. There he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. When he had used up his resources, a severe food shortage arose in that country, and he began to be in need. He hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the field to feed pigs. He longed to eat his fill from what the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired hands have more than enough food? But I'm starving to death. I will get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Take me on as one of your hired hands.' So he got up and went to his father. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. His father ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then his son said, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Fetch the fatted calf and slaughter it. We must celebrate with feasting, because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field. Coming in from the field, he approached the house and heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked, 'What is going on?' The servant replied, 'Your brother has arrived, and your father has slaughtered the fatted calf, because he received his son back safe and sound.' Then the older son was furious and didn't want to enter in, but his father came out and begged him. He answered his father, 'Look, I've served you all these years, and I've never disobeyed your instruction. Yet you've never given me as much as a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours returned, after gobbling up your estate on prostitutes, you slaughtered the fatted calf for him.' Then his father said, 'Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.'" A background of, or a little bit of understanding of Jewish law and customs is in order to fully comprehend all the dynamics that are going on here. The son requesting his share of the estate, the son is out of line in asking his father to distribute the estate before his death, but the event of distributing an estate before the death of the the father here was not an unheard of event. A lot of times the father would decide that he didn't want to be bothered, or wasn't up to the task involved of looking after the estate, and would divide his estate up among his heirs, when he simply wished to not labor anymore. And so the division of the estate itself before his death is not unheard of. What's out of line here is the son asking for his part of the estate. Now, the older son is entitled to 2/3 of the estate. And if I remember correctly, in this case, it's a moot point because there's only the two brothers. But if there had been more brothers, that remaining third would have been divided up among the remaining male heirs. But 2/3, they divided up into thirds, and 2/3 would go to the oldest son, and the remainder divided among the other heirs. And this would only be male heirs. Also, because of what the boy had done here in dishonoring his father, under Jewish laws, such a son was considered dead. He's no longer part of the family, no longer talked about, and to take it to a further extreme, that if anybody from the father's family came upon this son, it was expected that he would kill him because he was already dead to the family. And so it was a matter of honor to see that he was in fact dead. So when you see the father looking out and running to his son as he's returning, there's an element of protection there, because if somebody else gets to him first, he might be killed. But if the father gets to him first, then he can shelter him. The robe that he puts on him is a symbol of honor. The ring is a symbol of authority. It's like having a power of attorney. If you have somebody's signet ring, you have all of the authority of that person to conduct business, to enter into legal binding agreements with other people on behalf of the father. And the fact that he calls for sandals, I kind of always overlooked this, but this is also significant, that he called for sandals. The son going back, what he sought to be in his father's household, he knew what he had done. He fully understood the ramifications of it. And he was simply asking that his father would take him on as one of the hired slaves. There were slaves that were owned by a family, and to some extent they were part of the family. And any other labor that was needed to run the estate would be hired. And so on the pecking order, you have the children of the father, then you have the slaves, and then the hired slaves are the lowest of the lowest. And so that's what he was seeking to go back, but none of the slaves, either hired or the ones that were owned, had shoes. And so the fact that he calls for sandals here is another elevation of his place in the pecking order, so to speak, within the household, to get shoes on his feet. The older son, he won't even refer to him as his brother. He says, "This son of yours." And then he makes a statement about it. He's gone and squandered his money with prostitutes. The earlier, when it says that what the son went away, he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. Doesn't say anything about that. So where does this come from with the older son? Is this something that he's lusting after, that he would like to have done, and he's jealous of the younger son? Or has he heard rumors about what the younger son did? We don't know.
Or is it just hatefulness?
Could be just hatefulness, that's right. Because he certainly didn't have any love lost with his younger brother.
But if they considered dead, they wouldn't have any contact with him, so they wouldn't know what he would be doing.
One would think that was the case.
Gossip, he would have heard.
Gossip.
Yep, anybody
Well,
would know.
even gossip wouldn't have gotten back to him if they considered that he was dead.
It might have. You just don't know.
Small country.
Uh,
Small family too.
Generally, people relate the older son to the Pharisees. They've been part of the chosen. They've been part of the temple worship, part of God's people. They're an esteemed position within God's people, and so he's had a place of honor all along that the younger son wouldn't have. And the father says, you've always been there. You know that I love you, and always will. But we have to rejoice because we've had something lost and now it's found. Your brother has come back, and that's reason to rejoice. William Barclay made a little bit to do about, in verse 17, in the Common English Bible, it says when he came to his senses. In the Revised Standard, it says when he came to himself. And Barclay spends a couple paragraphs talking about this in the sense that unless a man comes to his senses, he's not himself. And so since he wasn't himself, that's sort of a separation there, that the things that he did when he wasn't himself, that he's almost like he's not accountable for that. But then when he came to himself, then he realized that what he had done was wrong, and he wants to make amends for it. And in that sense, that there's always a place when humanity comes to itself, there's always a place for that individual within God's family for forgiveness. I'll just leave that to you for what it's worth there. But since Barclay spent so much time on it, I thought I would include that in here. Any thoughts or comments about this lost son coming back and the events that take place here?
I guess I think that we can resonate with all three of the main characters. In each of their actions, one that wanted to get away and go have fun, the father acquiescing to that and then welcoming him back, and the older son, I can really see that as well, how somebody would be bitter, to be.
Well, he chose a better alternative rather than take his life, because nowadays so many people, I can't deal with that, and they take their own life. But he, like you say, came to his senses enough that, okay, let me go back and take my punishment from my family and see if I can't get straightened out a little bit. So he had a little bit more going for him than just committing suicide wherever he was, since the law was that he would be already considered dead to the family.
I think about family dynamics and this whole scenario here, unfortunately, is not that far-fetched from what goes on in families.
We have a couple that help with our wood ministry, and their family is doing the same thing. They don't know where, was it James, his grandson, where he's gone. He just upped and left. He's been going through trouble and stuff, and now they don't even know where he is at all, because we keep in touch with him, and he doesn't keep in touch with his mother or his ex-wife and all that stuff. Nobody knows what he's doing, but he's gone through drugs and all kinds of stuff before, and halfway got straightened out, went to rehab, but since he's left rehab this last time, nobody knows where he is.
When I was growing up, had one of my aunts, one of my father's sisters, stopped speaking to her daughter. And this was a subject of gossip when the family would get together. I lived in Maryland, and one of my uncles would bring me to Virginia to so I could be in contact with my father's family down in Floyd County. And I remember they would always talk about Sadie and Maxine, that they had to make sure that they weren't together because they didn't speak to each other. But when my grandfather Greer died, they both were at his funeral, and they kind of looked at each other and came to themselves, if you will, because they couldn't remember
What they fought
honestly what the division was about, and then there was never any more problems after that. But that's not always the case.
What I wonder is, if you are a Christian, you have to forgive. The Bible does not make that optional.
Yeah.
You have to forgive. So, seems simple enough to me.
Well, I think that was the whole point of Jesus, sharing the parable, was trying to get that message across. That in that relationship with Christ, in that relationship with God through Christ, that forgiveness has to be a part of that relationship, or you don't have a relationship with the Father.
It's simple, but not always easy.
No, it's not.
Depends on what the hurt was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you'll be joining us in our service. We've made provisions that you'll be able to hopefully call in comments during the sermon time, if you so desire, that can be shared so that you may partake in this discussion also. But may God's blessings be upon you.